Today's video is sponsored by Wondershare Uniconverter. Look, I love stories about self-exploration. Stories that explore the convoluted mess that people create for themselves as we all struggle to admit who we are. That for as exhausting and stressful it is just to exist, learning how to love yourself is just one of those things we all need to do.
Point you back in my guts like I'm one of your sick little fillies.
This is weird, yet it somehow managed to be one of the most beautiful Rick and Morty episodes we've ever gotten. And I just needed to talk about why. Now, if you've ever taken a cursory glance at my channel, you know I love ships. Be they flaming trash, regular trash, heartbreakers, or triumphs, fictional relationships are just one of those things that have been a blast for me to enjoy, as even when it's done bad, the fandoms make it hilarious. So you can imagine my delight as this episode unfolded as I cried tears of laughter the first time I watched this thing. As just, wow, they really went there. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how just genuinely it moves me. For all the great character building we've gotten, episodes that explore the relationships between Rick and Morty, Rick and Beth, even Rick and Summer, it's the characters that truly make this show what it is, not the high concepts. How the Sanchez family, despite living in a nihilistic universe, are able to find meaning in each other, helping to ground those that they love. But just like how every Rick needs a Morty to stay grounded, every video editor needs a great video converter to change file types, arrange videos, and just stay at the top of their game. And I was honestly losing my mind till I found Wondershare Uniconverter. Wondershare Uniconverter is a complete toolbox to convert, compress, edit videos, burn DVDs, and so much more. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've been out of sorts lately, as I hate downloading videos, and because I'm doing the biggest project ever, I have needed to get so many. And they ought to be reformatted, they ought to be edited to fit, and it's just driving me insane. But thanks to Wondershare, I was able to get through it almost painlessly. Decent timing. At least I didn't burn out my video card like I did last time, which that wasn't great. What I love about Uniconverter is just all the little perks, and they just make it so easy. With just a slider, you get to change what type of video quality and size you want, allowing you to compress videos for easy storage, while also maintaining great quality, as, trust me, you will find no better H.264 encoder that will compress as well as while maintaining this level of quality. From anime clips taken off the internet to mammoth videos, Uniconverter has got you covered, with plenty of AI tools that help improve your workflow and make editing easier. Like for me personally, Smart Trimmer alone pretty much makes this whole package worth it. As before, I would just spend an hour of my life just editing out every little small gap in my recording, and trust me, there are a lot of those. Instead, I just plug it into Trimmer, and it removes all the spaces, all the little pauses, and I'm left with just the parts where I'm actually speaking, and at that point I just have to cut out the flub lines, which saves me time and makes it so much easier to edit my videos. So if you want to improve your workflow, save time and money, Wondershare Uniconverter is where it's at. Check out Uniconverter by clicking the link down in the description, and trust me, it is absolutely worth it. Y'all can't judge me, but you can judge yourself, which is at the heart of domestic Beth's issues. Now, Beth as a character has been through a lot. Outside the titular characters, I'd argue Beth has had the most growth, kind of accomplishing it easily thanks to the double helping. While one would try to be content on Earth with her family, while the other got to run wild in the stars. With the two Beths realizing it didn't matter who was a clone, as they both could coexist and they both were their own person. They both were Beth. Space Beth was able to keep going on adventures, safe in the knowledge that her family was being taken care of, while normal Beth was able to be semi-happy at home, content that this was the life that she chose, and that there's another version of herself out there, being able to get in on all the insanity that comes with being Rick's daughter. While I was initially a little bit disappointed by the speed which they brought back Space Beth, and immediately gave us the Rick is a shitty dad moment, accompanied by sad music hard carrying the scene, I thought it was a neat twist that shook up the family dynamic. As after a long absence, Season 6 has finally brought Space Beth back as a major character rather than a cameo, and oh my god, was this a way to use her. As in what probably has to be the family's 100th of Thanksgiving, everyone gets together to suffer through another family dinner. Morty just wants to play video games. Rick just got done conning the president to pardoning him again, which is Rick's get out jail free card for all the rules he breaks every year. with the two Beths far from the bickering and fighting we saw in the premiere, and here they're just getting along great. A little too great. Like, I was not sure what they were going for at first. They're talking about drinking wine, having playful banter, cracking their backs, before leading into some justified but suspicious physical contact. As yeah, Space Beth does need to move Beth's hair to insert a translation ship. But this framing was very heavily coded as flirting. These could have just been usual physical interactions, but there's something more to it. With the show wasting no time in making those suspicions into reality, with both of them being unable to sleep at night, exchanging more dialogue in as low a bedroom voice as they can manage. Yep, this just turned into self-cest, which, just an aside, this really is becoming the new default for narcissistic characters, isn't it? Before we get into my favorite scene, let's talk about a little bit more about Beth and who they are as people. As from the beginning, Beth has had a rough life. Born to a genius father who would rather throw her into a dimensional playground than deal with her, the fact that her dad was the rickest Rick who chose to ditch her to hop across the multiverse is gonna leave anyone with daddy issues. But besides that lifetime of therapy, her life really kinda went down in high school, where she got knocked up by Jerry on prom night, so whatever dreams she may have had before got rerouted into motherhood, and she would spend the next 20 years resenting how her life turned out, how she was just a horse doctor, hating how people looked down on her, resenting her husband even while they desperately clung to each other. She would binge drink wine during the day, emotionally shut down at night, and while she did truly love her family, Beth also hated them as well, which is a natural reaction. Her life didn't turn out the way she thought it would. She's overqualified, Jerry is a pathetic loser, the kids are a nightmare, and she's Rick Sanchez's daughter, which is the breeding ground for a superiority complex big enough to make anybody miserable. The question of can Beth become content is one that the show has been asking constantly, with it never arriving on an answer that didn't last less than 20 minutes. She cruised through alternate versions of her life, where she achieved everything she wanted by aborting summer, but even in that life, she was still miserable. She was still alone, finding closure with her marriage with Jerry and making it work. Till they got back into fighting, then they got divorced, breaking that vicious cycle and replacing it with a different one, her father. With them finally interacting enough to show just how alike they are, and him giving her the opportunity to do what he did, to go out into the universe and leave her family behind. With them creating a clone of her to potentially stay behind and take care of her family, to not abandon them completely like she was. At least that's the idea on paper. She gave her dad the choice to decide if he wanted the real Beth to stay with him or follow in his footsteps. Rick, instead, decided to let random chance decide which Beth experienced which life, not caring who would sit across the table from him. As yeah, this isn't his Beth, there's an infinite amount of them, and only by not caring does he think he can function in the face of cosmic nihilism. And I just want to say this, but he functions terribly, and this mindset is why. But this is how we ended up with two Beths, with two radically different character arcs. As Earthbeth ultimately decided to reject Rick, to take Jerry back, seeing him as a true constant in her life, helping her pull herself out of an identity crisis, settling in for a more healthy family dynamic, as she learns not to drink Rick's Kool-Aid and to not put him on such a high pedestal. However, as the show would go on, we would see Beth's insecurities pop up, as she still questions who she is, even feeling insecure compared to her space self. Even though she's now happy and a little bit more content, Beth still feels trapped. Space Beth, meanwhile, would become an intergalactic rebel, fighting the remains of the government till she was considered an even bigger threat than Rick was. Space Beth is free from all the expectations of her life back at home, reveling in her freedom, though this confidence and badass attitude does diminish her relationship with her family, as even after going back and making them aware of her existence, she's often short and just not overly invested in them, believing that's what normal Beth is for, as she now has a free pass to do whatever she wants. And my take of this has always been, regular Beth could just slip it back into her life that she's always lived. Space Beth goes out of her way to not be that person anymore. She's trying to build for herself a new identity, but a lot of it is just based around not being the person that she was, to not be the person who would compromise her own life and joys for others. Space Beth defines herself as having made the choice to let go, which makes her all the more willing to be more like Rick. She doesn't hate her life or think less of Beth, But Space B really wants to keep that distance, which isolates her, as from what we've seen, she hasn't built any meaningful connections since leaving Earth, or at least none that the show has deemed important enough to bring up. Both Beths have become wildly different, but are still very similar, and we were always going to get an episode where the two had to confront these differences. I never thought we would get one in which they would fall in love with each other, and how it ultimately is amazing in that it helps Beth learn to love herself. As after getting spotted nearly kissing by Summer, the two have to invent an excuse to get away from the family, going out to get space ice cream, but instead of doing that, they just hang out in orbit, and it's amazing.
Same person. There's differences. Like, one of us has no idea who she really is.
I love this scene. I love all the moments between the Beths, as they're treated with such tenderness and love without any humor taking away from the situation. It all feels so natural, and more than romantic, these scenes feel so intimate. This sense of understanding and introspection really make all of this work. There's no song blaring at you telling you how to feel. And look, I'm an Attack on Titan fan. I'm 100% all about that. But for these moments, quiet is better, as it really lets you feel just how vulnerable and small they are, and it builds that sense of intimacy. The Beths just float in the vacuum of space. All their problems on Earth are just microscopic, made to feel insignificant in just the scope of the galaxy. And then they start talking, and it was right here that I knew they weren't going for a cheap gag, as they take the moment to point out how Beth's banter really isn't healthy, and to stop all the self-deprecation. Does not joke about not being able to pronounce a name, or about being overly tight or stressed about their OCD. It's played for laughs, but all this reveals just how she feels like she's less than Space Beth, who has to remind her that she shares all the same faults, struggling with the same issues that our Beth has. Which is the funny thing about self-deprecation. It's good to be self-aware, to be able to laugh at yourself. However, defaulting to make fun of yourself, even as a joke, can do way more harm than good. It's an easy escape to tell a joke at your own expense, but that negative way of thinking can actually be toxic to how you view who you are, leading to you not being able to appreciate your own strengths or find joy in what you've done. That sense of self-worth, that sense of achievement is tainted by framing it as comedy, to downplay it, to make it seem less than what it is. But so many of us, myself included, do it because it's just an easy trap to fall into. That little bit of negativity, how you frame yourself, can ruin your self-perception, which is what has happened to Beth. Living with her family, knowing there's this badass space version of herself just out there, it's easy for Beth to joke about it. I feel like they're the worst version of the pair. But Space Beth won't let them keep talking like this. And here's what's so groundbreaking about what Space Beth is offering her other self. Like I said, self-perception is a bitch. We're naturally negative, and it's one giant trap. But for all the trouble we fall into, there's still something good about all of us. Something that dealing with the daily chore of existing muddies and messes up, to the point that we don't recognize it. But from the outside, it can be obvious. Having someone else tell you your ass looks great, that you're amazing, is good. It is a good feeling, as it lets you hear it without having to shout over all the other little voices in your head. So for Beth to have this other version of herself allows them to have a tangible thing that they can easily compliment and love. Something that is free from all their other issues, that is just there, that exists, and they can just do it without having to worry. To say the things that they won't even tell themselves in the mirror, to be happy, to feel confident, and to hear that they deserve to feel that way. To be able to love someone else while also loving themselves. These are the beautiful ideas that make the Beth's relationship so fascinating to me. What makes these moments feel so powerful, as for as emotionally scarring this is for everyone else in the house, the weird Beth-cest is bringing about a great emotional message and some great character exploration. Even as the relationship grows and they question if this is a fling or something more, they discover it could truly last a lifetime, courtesy of Holodeck. It brings them to a better place, while also highlighting the divergent character evolution. Space Beth still refuses to consider how her actions will affect others, thinking it's just their problem and she doesn't have to worry about them, while Beth is terrified with how this will affect her family, even going to her dad, who confirms Rick has banged other Ricks, which, I need to say this, is the least shocking thing I've ever heard in this show. What was shocking was how Jerry factored into all of this, with him going catatonic as Space Beth just drops the reveal that, hey, I'm fucking your wife. With him ultimately snapping out of it on his own, to save the day, preventing his wives from erasing their own memory of the affair while leaving everyone else to just deal with it. Jerry, fresh off his "I would kill myself if you leave me" speech, is actually semi-emotionally mature, admitting to his faults that he was a dick for talking about killing himself, which is emotional blackmail, never do this, with him deciding to pack up his stuff and go, before ultimately revealing that he's okay with Beth dating herself.
Who cares what he likes? I do.
I might like it, and if she likes it, I permit it.
You little pervert.
Something else I really love about this Jerry moment is that he's basically done a complete 180 from what he was like during the first Thanksgiving episode. Jerry's parents came out and said, "Oh yeah, we're in a poly relationship now. There's this new guy. He's fucking your mom, and I watch." And Jerry lost his mind. He made this all about me. He kept whining. He even thought like, "Oh my God, Rick, you're the normal one now." And it was just so immature, so like not understanding, yet here he is getting the same setup. And I love that for him. I love that he's able to come around, move to this point where like, no, this is what makes a relationship work. He's not trying to create this ideal version for himself. He's accepting it. He's accepting his wife's needs, and he realizes he's so much happier for it, which I just love. We see that Jerry can actually deal with both these Beths pretty well. As Space Beth is pretty much Beth before the character development of season 3, so she semi kind of hates him, but he can deal with that. He's lived through that. And it leads to these two fighting. It leads to this fight escalating into them having a three-way, while the rest of the family suffers through the horrors of non-soundproofed walls. And I think this is what makes it. We have this great emotional message while everyone else is suffering from it. It's comedy gold, and it's great. With the next morning revealing that the three of them have settled into a semi-healthy poly relationship. This is arguably the most functional dynamic Beth and Jerry have ever had. This isn't how I thought they'd bring Space Beth closer to the family, but it works so well. Regular Beth finding self-love is so perfect. It's so great for a character who has so much struggled with it. Even Jerry is so great here, even as he's desperately looking for his own self-love in the post-credits. But that is a whole other can of worms we don't have time to get into.
Thank you. This is incredible.
Like Loki, this was an amazing episode. I love the message here. I'm all about that self-love, and I'm all about these three for some demented reason. This is honestly an amazing episode. I was a little bit worried after the last one, but I'm down for this. Doesn't have to be this quality, doesn't have to have this much going on, but the rest of the season keeps going from great to meh episodes. I would still call this a great season. Thank you all for watching. Check out Wondershare Uniconverter, link down in the description. Like, share, and subscribe to annoy all the Rick and Morty fans. And yes, I am working on my bigger video about Total Drama Island. Stay with me, you will be well fed. Peace out.